Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule, from the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings. We lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.
And there you have it. That's the intro that I worked a little bit on, mostly Newsfist's work here. Welcome, everybody. This is a alpha test stream, the staging ground, for a new stream series that Newsfist and I are going to be doing for the next year. We have about a dozen episode ideas already laid out, and this stream is going to be us just telling you the why that we want to do this and talking a bit about the structure and where we're headed. We're going to do another episode 0 stream either next week or the week after before we actually go on with the first official episode. So tonight, welcome everybody. I see we already have a lot of familiar faces in the chat. We've got about 50 people watching already. Hello to everybody on Rumble. I see CC over there. Sede Sapiente, great to see you here, sister. We've got a lot of good people. We got Matt over on we got Matt over on Odyssey. Great to see you guys. As you can see, Entropy is the pinned comment in YouTube. If you would like to send some financial support to help kick things off, I would deeply appreciate that as always. I'll also be checking the phone for Cash App. All the usual things. If you guys follow me, you know that you can support Rants on Rumble, Hyperchats Odyssey, PayPal, Subscribestar, all that good stuff. And I would deeply appreciate any financial support you can send in, and we will be getting to those at the end of the stream. Unlike Discordant Dragons, the plan of this stream is not just funny entertainment about news. This is going to be a long-term project with serious goals, and we're not going to be stopping in the middle of it to do community engagement and answer super chats as soon as they come in. We'll be checking them out towards the end. That'll be the final segment of this, because this is going to be a condensed, focused format of a stream between 60 and 90 minutes. We want to pack in a lot of material that is educational, informational, etc., into a hyper-focused lens that we can give in educational segments week after week after week about this age of psyops and bullshit that we all live in. And that's the focus of the stream series. Now, this is of course, an idea that I brainstormed with Newsfist. This is not just me pulling it out of the ether. Newsfist has a mind for academic study. He has a mind for words that I don't have. You guys that follow me, you know I'm not an academic. I can read a book and I only remember the meaning of it. I don't remember the particulars. I can't quote stats. I don't remember names and dates and stuff. That ain't me. I've never practiced that. I'm not good at that. Newsfist is. He's got that beautiful male autism down.
I have the autismo. Yes.
He sure does. So I'm going to get quiet for a minute and let him talk. Why don't you tell us just whatever you want to share about what this stream series is going to be, where we're headed, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, so we live essentially in a world of psyops, right? Everyone sort of instinctively realizes that everyone who's, not basically sort of sleepwalking, okay? But what many people don't realize is that these techniques have been built up over probably at least 150 years, right? With sort of the birth of Freudian psychology and sort of the fall of not the Weimar, the Prussians, and the rise of Freud, and these techniques have been honed and honed and honed to basically sort of military precision. And while many people can spot their effects, understanding exactly how they work and how these principles affect human behavior is another thing entirely. And even though you can never fully resist these things, right? It's a bit like if you go up to like a normie and you say to them, do you think you're immune to propaganda, right? The answer that you're going to get is, oh yes, I don't think propaganda affects me, right? And those, without fail, are the people who are the most propagandized, right? So although you can never avoid it 100%, by understanding the principles of propaganda and manipulation, you can blunt quite a bit of its effects. You can know which questions to ask. You can tell when you're being led. This is ramped up basically to 110 under woke, right? Like many people now, when people start talking woke, right, after like a paragraph, you realize this is like woke. Like you can feel it, like a gunky slime on your brain. But this slime has been built up through all of these different psychological warfare principles that were studied by the Freudians and the neo-Marxists and all of these like horrible people, basically, to try and basically half of them they just want power, and the other half of them sort of want a different human, homo novus, right? The new Soviet man, right? They are unhappy with the state of man, and instead of being humble, right, instead of basically being, well, it is what it is, right, you should not try and change man around you, like maybe you should change yourself, right? No, they're not going to do that, right? And the results of trying to change the inherent nature of man always result pretty much in genocide or tyranny, or these incredibly horrible effects on society. Because once you start disabling the ability of humans to be human, they start getting confused. You get competency crises. People, they aren't allowed to like say what they think. Their thoughts become sluggish. You get
And
this
like I said in my article a couple months ago, why the big lie?
Yeah.
The point of this forever, never-ending mind war propaganda, telling you things that you intrinsically, either consciously or subconsciously, know are false day after day, the point is not to make you believe it's all true. The point is to make you doubt if anything's true and paralyze your subconscious to keep you from acting or believing anything. That's the point of the forever propaganda, which we'll get into as the stream goes on. But go ahead, Newsfist.
No, look, and that's a really good article, by the way. You should post it to chat. I highly recommend you read
Sure,
it.
I'll do that right now. Go ahead.
You don't rate yourself as an academic, but I thought that article was like really fucking good, actually. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Thank
you. Essentially when it comes to the big lie, there is always a big lie, right? Plato sort of recognized this. He goes all the way like thousands and thousands of years. In the modern sort of political conception, this would be called a sort of a political mechanism or a political ideology. It is a story that the people tell itself, or depending on how you believe, a story that the elites tell to the people to give their purpose. But this lie can, broadly speaking, be good or evil. Okay, so you could have a lie like what most people would recognize as patriotism. Okay, right? So our country is special. It comes from a special destiny, a special place. Myths back in time. We are, going forward to a great future. And all the people in this nation are like part of that thing moving together, and we are all protected, and together we are going forward, right? That is a good version of the noble lie. I mean, it's not true in every single case, obviously, right? That you can wind up on the wrong side of the noble lie very, very quickly. But you can make a case that such a lie as patriotism, at the very least, serves the broad general interests of that nation. And you could say that the interests of the elite and the interests of the people, while not the same, are broadly aligned. So most of the time, when the people do good, the elites do good. And most of the time, when the elites do good, the people do good, right? There's a part in Plato's Republic I think about a lot. So Socrates is arguing with this guy Thrasymachus. I think that's how you pronounce it. My Greek sucks ass. Okay, Thrasymachus is basically like an edgelord, right? And he's saying Socrates is talking about the elite and the mass, like the shepherd and the sheep, right? And Thrasymachus comes along and he's like, "Nah, man, the fucking shepherd, he doesn't care about the sheep." Right, the shepherd, he exploits the sheep. He comes along, he takes their meat, he takes their wool. No. And Socrates is like, But the shepherd must care for the sheep. He must lead them to like pastures. He must protect them from predators. You know what I mean, right? Like all this stuff that the shepherd has to do to the sheep. Because if he does not protect the sheep, then the sheep get sickly. They die. They will not produce wool. And this, broadly speaking, is the way to think about the relationship between the elites and the mass, right? We are basically their crops. We are their livestock, right? Now, it doesn't have to be bad, right? Any more than, you can have a farm where the farmer takes really, really good care of his animals. He loves his animals. You know what I mean, right? Every time he has to slaughter one for meat, he doesn't like it. He loves the animals like they're part of his family. It doesn't change the fact that they are livestock, right? But then you could have another farmer who is very, very cruel to his animal. He really doesn't give a shit. They're just, he would never shed a tear. If they went into a wood chipper, he exploits them for like everything. And as a result, the herd, they are sick, you don't get the most out of them. And so this essentially is the difference between I guess what you would call the noble lie and the ignoble lie, right? The grand lie that is broadly for the good of people, for the good of everyone, and the ignoble lie that merely serves the elite. But of course, the elite wind up fucking themselves over. I mean, this is literally what we are seeing happening, particularly in the United States right now. The elite is exploiting the population to the point where the elites are beginning to suffer. And this is one of the reasons why you're starting to see the elites make these like very, very sudden moves, because shit's suddenly starting to affect them. That's not supposed to happen, right? I mean, like, no one cares if, your wife gets like, shot in the head by like a random immigrant, right? But I'm part of the elite. What if they're immigrants at Martha's Vineyard? Oh, no. Take them away to where the masses deal with them. So this is the inevitable problem. If the elites abuse the mass too much, eventually the problems start to blow back on them.
Let me step in here for a second. The reason why all that stuff he just said matters is it's important to know your place in the stack of things, because too often we see this lie of democracy and this lie of the people leading good-minded, good-hearted people to make foolish decisions that destroy their lives, get them on lists, get them imprisoned, things like that, because they believe in this lie of modernity that the will of the people, it just needs the next Che Guevara. It just needs the next populist revolution, right? That has never worked for the benefit of our people. Never.
Yes.
Never once has that gone well for us. And
actually, sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
So actually, this segues brilliantly into what I wanted to talk about, which was let
me wrap up then before you move on.
Sure, yeah,
I was going somewhere with that.
Okay.
The reason why we want to lay all of this out is I wanted to have an academic series that lays out the bullet points for why words like racist have life-ending power in modernity when they didn't used to. Words like sexist or far right or Nazi, why those words can hang you and get your children taken from you, but words like communist or feminist don't. Now, of course, you guys know what side of the fence I'm on, but that's not the point of this stream. I don't even like the left-right divide. Everybody that follows me knows that. I don't consider myself one or the other, because I think that's all part of the circus, and this stream is going to elaborate why. The whole reason that this stream is going to exist is to have a bookshelf of material that people can tune into and learn about the primary pillars of propaganda and the stepping stones that got us from the early 1900s to now, and show you exactly how this ocean of lies we were born into operates and why it operates. I want everybody who wants to make a difference to have a nice bookshelf of material that they can learn from and then easily share with others. And of course, we're going to be going over how the propaganda intersects with modern day, and specifically how the socio-political angle, global communism, capitalism, etc., intersects with more spiritual racial matters. And that's where That's where Newsfist is a specialist on that part, and then I'm a specialist in the more cultural, racial, biospiritual part. And we will both be adding that from each angle, the academic, secular, financial stuff, politics, with the sort of religious, spiritual, racial stuff that matters. Like we talk about biospirit. Jason's work, the Go Free Method, is going to come up a lot because the reason why we have words that are power words to counter other power words matter in this age of propaganda that we all live in. That's why you have to equip yourself with the right weapons and the right armor for the battlefield that we're all on right now, which is not blowing up the government or shooting people with guns or any of that stuff. That doesn't really matter right now, does it? So hopefully that's going to, this stream is going to, this series, I should say, is going to elaborate on all of the things that we sort of all know and talk about on Discordant Dragons and in other streams, but in a more erudite, academic, sequential way that Newsfist and I will be doing for at least the next 6 months, maybe even longer. We have a lot of streams planned. So I'll hush for a while and give the mic back to you. Go ahead.
So I just adjusted the screen elements. The picture is too horrific and the camera boxes are too small. Do you want to widen yours out a bit, Yiz, and match it, and then yeah, there we go.
Already done.
How's that, guys? I think that's
how do you like that live editing, everybody?
Yeah, movie magic. Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, broadly speaking, the reason why we're in a situation like we are with, words like racist and communists comes down to a guy called Herbert Marcuse, who you may or may not be familiar with. James Lindsay talked about him a lot back when I was much more enamored by James Lindsay when he was teaching sort of like more basic principles about this kind of like stuff. And it comes back to an idea or a principle called repressive tolerance, which is this sort of distortion of Karl Popper, but it's basically like we will not tolerate the intolerant, right? But we will tolerate anything from our side, right? So if Antifa uses, fire bombings and, beatings and shootings and rapings and whatever, we will totally tolerate that. But we will not tolerate even bad words from our opponent. It's basically, just censor everything because, they're fascists, right? And the communists don't really believe that anyone other than them is human, right? This is why they act the way that they do. It's one of the reasons they use the language that they do. They tend to use the term human when they're like coding for communists. They talk about things like a human world, a human society, right? This
human
is
rights, for example.
Yeah, this is a disguised language that is supposed to denote again, that only the new Soviet man is human, right? And although no one really can reach this ideal, some are better at it than others, usually because they're better at lying.
And then I would say at this point, on the sort of racial religious side of things, the reason why they are like that is this annihilative Gnostic ideology. It inverts everything. So in the Christian framework, it is all satanic. It inverts the natural order or the divine order. Evil becomes good. Male becomes female. God becomes self, right? And so This is why you have such an annihilative, anti-male, anti-white, anti-God energy coming out of all of this. Because while almost none of these horrible people that support and do all of this wake up every day and think, I'm going to destroy the white race, I'm going to destroy the male sex. Like, most of them don't really think that way. But as made manifest by all their actions together, behold the anti-white narrative. And so that's where I will be chiming in and sharing my expertise with the Go Free Method and with the ideas of how to combat these hostile ideas. Hopefully the two of us together will be able to sort of DJ a lot of good academic material, but come at it from both an academic and more of a proselytizing preacher angle to really put an educational spin on some otherwise really boring historic material.
And it's funny that you mentioned Gnosticism because I was quite into this, again via Lindsay, this whole, it's Gnosticism. But actually I did a bit more research and it's not really Gnosticism, it's actually Kabbalah, right? Gnosticism was a very, very fringe sort of cult sort of belief system that died out quite early. Most of these beliefs survived into the modern age through Kabbalah, cabalism, and sort of Jewish cults like Luranic cabalism and Sabbatai Zevi. I don't know if you know who Sabbatai Zevi is, but he was a false messiah. So
I don't know
the
who that is. No, sorry.
story of Sabbatai Zevi is goddamn fascinating, man. Like I've been reading so much Jewish history. There, it is fucking crazy. Like I would go so far as to say that unless you understand Jewish history, you can't really understand the history of the world, because most history just leaves it out entirely. And they're for a small group, they really punch above their weight, right? So Sabbatai Zevi was this figure who emerged after the Spanish expulsion, right? All the Jews got expelled from Spain in 1492, I believe it was, right? Which started the Spanish Golden Age, purely coincidentally. And after that, the Jews sort of wandered. They went to like Turkey and Palestine and stuff like that. And instead of sort of sitting down and being like, oh, did we perhaps do anything to make the Spanish hate us? They were like, oy vey, God has chosen to punish us, but we don't really know why. It always happens like this, right? So then there was this tremendous rise of messianic millennialism, right? Millennialism is the belief in the second coming, that things, the rapture is millennialist, okay, right? And this guy, Sabbatai Zevi, came about. He proclaimed himself a messiah. He was a manic depressive. He believed that an angel came down during the night and burnt him on the tip of his dick. I'm not kidding, right? This is crazy shit. And his teachings, oy vey. And his teachings began to spread all over, Palestine, Turkey, Syria, all where the Spanish diaspora Jews were, and into Europe. And they forged a bunch of these letters and old books. Okay, never heard that before. And this infected at least about 50% of European diaspora Jewry, right?
Yeah.
And it became so prevalent that a whole bunch of them, as the date approached, right, which was was it 1666? It was a couple of no, it couldn't be 1666, 1566. I forget. They had some numerologically significant year, right? They started abandoning all of their rituals. They started tearing up like fence posts and burning them, because the new age was going to come any day now. They didn't need to mill bread. All of this like incredible chaos, right? And the old school rabbis were like, oh, this is very, very bad, right? Like, don't listen to Sabbatai, you got to follow the Torah. And look, I have a lot of respect for that position. Imagine you're like,
don't listen to this Meshuggah.
Yeah. I mean, imagine you're with like, I don't know, you're in the American South, right? And everyone's a Baptist, right? And then one day, right, like, you get this false messiah rock up, and like half the Baptists are like, we don't have to like buy food anymore. We don't have to pay our taxes. We don't have to like pay our mortgage. And they just abandon everything, right? And they expect the Messiah will come. And then Sabbatai Zevi went to the Ottoman Empire and converted to Islam. the Sultan basically said to him,
what? Really?
Yeah. The Sultan put the hard word on him, and he's like, you either convert to Islam, or we're gonna fuck you. So he converted to Islam, and at that point, there was a massive discreditation of the movement. The movement entirely collapsed. It was a sort of a mortal blow for the diaspora Jewry at this point. Although, weirdly enough, some Jews basically went along and said, oh, he's converted to Islam to convert the Muslims, right? And this actually spawned this cult in Turkey, Dime, I forget the name, that were like half Jewish, half Muslim, and it's like really, really weird, sort of spooky kind of Illuminati cult. It's such a fucking weird.
I've never studied any of this. This is all new to me, and it's fascinating.
Mate, there's like this book on it. I managed to get a third of the way through, and it was just all about the intricacies of Luranic Kabbalah. And holy shit, it is fucking mental. Like when Lindsay talks about Gnosticism, right? He talks about these two fundamental ideas. One of them is Hermeticism, right, which is the idea that God is like scattered throughout the world, right? And you just have to find the pieces of God, man, and like assemble them all together. And when you've got the pieces of God, right, like it'll be all together. And the other one is, oh my God, what is it? broadly speaking, Gnosticism, the idea that like God is like hidden and you've been thrust into the world. The Germans called it Geworfenheit, right? Which is like, you know, you're thrust into this body. And that reincarnationism and, you know, transmigration and all this kind of like other stuff. And Lindsay's like, you know, it's the combination of these two things. No, it's not. It's Kabbalah. Kabbalah is the combination of these two things. Like back to the 15th century under Luria, it is the combination of these two things. But Lindsay, of course, does not want to criticize the chosening ones because I don't know. But at this point, his sort of avoidance of the topic,
we know why. We can just leave that alone.
He's getting crazy. Yeah, no. But I'm just saying, like, it's not in any way prejudicial to point out the antecedents of these ideas. It's very, very well documented. It's not like no one knows what fucking Lorrainic cabalism is. I mean, I don't know. Maybe just autists like myself. Right, I've rambled again. Where the fuck are we going with this?
No, the point of all of this was to let people know why this stream series is going to happen. Because I feel like when people go looking for answers, like I went looking for answers for 15 years, you know what I found? I would find crackpots. The majority of people that I was led to looking for answers in the vein that I feel led, what did I find? I found modern neo-Nazi idiots. I found people that just want to blame the Jews and hate the Jews all day. I found people that blamed it on ridiculous cabals of, oh, it's all about Masons and blah, blah, blah. It's just this satanic cult. That, like, I kept finding really unpalatable people and presentations that I had to stomach just to get some useful information out of. And I hate that. And so I think that Chris and I have a very palatable way about us to present information that is about very sensitive things about international Jewry, international communism, the evils of corporatism and capitalism from the West, and the way that we can talk about how all of these things intersected through the war machine era of the 1900s that created the intelligentsia paired with the media apparatus that basically bequeathed to us as, you know, Gen X and younger, the hellscape that we live in today. And I think that with mine and his, you know, kind of jokey, playful demeanor and the way that we don't, you know, we're not going to like beat the Bible and say it's all Satan, and we're not going to point at the Jews and say it's all the small hats, because we know that that's not true. It's a whole bunch of things. And this annihilative cancer lives in all of us because we are all born into this fractured, broken, disheveled, deracinated race of people. And so we have to find our way out of this. And a big way that people who actually go looking for information can be emboldened is to know the how and the why of how we got here in as clear-cut and as stomachable of information as they can get, paired with useful ideas and dialectical tools of how to think and speak on all of this stuff to people around them. So that's what this stream series is hopefully going to address and succeed at doing in the next 6 months or so. That's the focus of what we're trying to put together here. And hopefully we will succeed.
Well, yeah, it's funny, you mentioned the sort of obsession that people have with the Jews, right? To which I always respond, well, which ones are you talking about precisely? I mean, there's actually a lot of conflict within Jewry, particularly at the moment. But just to pivot to the other thing I wanted to talk about, I'm not sure if we can do overlays with this thing, but I don't suppose it really.
No, I can do overlays.
Right?
Like here's
one I have been reading.
Give me money, overlay. See, we can do overlays.
No, I mean, if I turn on the web browser overlay, it's gonna look a little bit weird.
Yeah, this is why we have smaller chat windows, so it's easier to show stuff. If you want to look at some images and talk about things, we can shrink our cameras again.
Oh yeah, I suppose we could do that actually. Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do that. You shrink yours again, and then I'll match on my interface.
Right, shrink in shrinking,
in smalling.
Right. Okay. I think that's okay. So I have been reading Nima Parvini, Academic Agents book. Do you want to shrink in your camera? Yeah, there. Right. Book
I just had to wait to save it. That's all.
Right. Now, this is a really, really, really good book. Honestly, I can't recommend it highly enough, except unless you've got a political science degree, it's a bit heavy going, right? So I thought I would summarize some of sort of like the first and second chapters, because it essentially gets at the biggest lie of all in the Empire of Lies, which is that change in any political system is driven from the bottom up through mass movements. This is bullshit. It is complete and utter bullshit. It is such bullshit that it is the kind of bullshit that sounds really, really good, right? It is the kind of bullshit. Modern politics is very much a sort of blame the victim sort of a game, right? It's very much like you know, oh well, you know, it's your fault that we're raping you. Essentially, you know, if you weren't going around, you know, looking so taxable, baby, you know, in that car, I wouldn't, you know, I had a financial emergency. I had to come along and, you know, jump all over you, right? The truth of the matter is that, as Academic Agent puts it very, very well, is that an organized minority of 100 will always outclass a disorganized majority of 1,000. And anyone who thinks that this is bullshit, just look at the army, the police, the government, any organized minority, the Zionists, the Islamists, right? And the thing about the Zionists is that they are a tightly knit group of people that all share the same outlook and all help each other, have high in-group preference. The Christian Zionists are exactly the same, by the way, right? As are the Islamists, right? Like, you know, this is not a sort of exclusively phenomenon to any one group. The communists are kind of the same, actually, right? And this comes back essentially, right, to a guy called Pareto and another guy called Mosca, both of whom were part of the Italian school of elite theory, right? Which sounds, you know, very, very classy. Now, when I went to university, they were like they skated over this in the most like sort of amazing way possible. Let me see if I can like find my notes. I've got Evernote here somewhere. But basically, right, Mosca's fundamental assertion, right? Where am I going with this? Right. Is that there are two classes of people, the rulers and the ruled, right? Among the constant facts and tendencies that are to be found in all political organisms, one is so obvious that it is apparent to the most casual eye. In all societies, from all societies that are very meagerly developed and have barely attained the dawnings of civilization, down to the most advanced and powerful societies, two classes of people appear, the class that rules and the class that is ruled. In reality, the dominion of an organized minority obeying a single impulse, right, whether that is religious, ideological, or financial, but I find that ideology tends to be the strongest motivator. Money is not a good motivator. So when fags come up to me and they're like, oh, Chris, right, you don't understand. These people are trying to make money. No, what they want is power. The money is merely an avenue to power. Power is the thing that is being sought, right? Money, and you can see this very, very clearly, because if it was just about money, right, then they wouldn't mind if you had some too, right? It's right. About them having it and you not having it, right? Can
I say something real quick?
Sure, please go on.
One of the things that I have been saying for the last many years is it's not that they care about making money in the concept that we're lied to about, that everything is about profit. It's not. It's about controlling. If there's 10 clams, they want to control 10 clams. If there's 1,000 clams, they want to control 1,000 clams. The purpose of all of this money stuff is really just the mechanism of middle and upper class control. The plebs, they need a different kind of control for. That's the psyop stuff. That's the proselytizing. That's the mind war, etc. So when you understand that these massive organizations, the military-industrial complex, these international corporations, it's not that they want profit. They want control. They want market dominance of both our mind and resources. So that's very important to keep in mind, and that will be made evident as the things we have planned unfold. You'll see. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So, like, look at the American war in Iraq, for example. Okay, so for anyone who was not aware, the real reason that the Americans went to war in Iraq is because the Israeli lobby wanted the Americans to take out their enemies in the Middle East, right? You can argue about it all you want, but it made absolutely no sense whatsoever for the US to attack Iraq. I'm sorry, there's no strategic reason, right? Some other tards will be like, oh, They did it for the oil. That is like China invading Vietnam for fucking rice, right?
Yeah.
The under Trump, the US was the world's largest energy exporter. The one thing that the US is not short of is fucking oil. Okay, right? So it's about denying these resources to your enemy.
Or guns
right?
and ammo.
Yeah, that's right. You know, and of course the money is secondary, but the point I'm trying to make is that it's not just enough that they be rich. You must be poor, right? Because in that lies power, right? Power is, you know, the ability to come up to someone and say, like, hey, I've got $1 million. I want to, fucking, you know, do whatever. Have sex with your wife, buy your child, fucking take your house, you know, like whatever, right? Like, money is the vehicle by which this works. But if you've got enough money, you can be like, nah, actually, no, I don't want you to take my daughter or sleep with my wife or take my house or steal my farmland or, you know, whatever, right? So power is the goal. Control is the goal, is the my catchy sort of way of like thinking of it, right? Oh, excuse me. So to go back to Moscow, right? In reality, the dominion of an organized minority obeying a single impulse over the unorganized majority is inevitable. The power of any minority is irresistible as against each single individual in the majority who stands alone before the totality of the organized minority. Now, this is very fucking important. This is the fucking problem with liberalism, right? This is the problem with all you fucking like Lindsay and Douglas Murray cucks going, we're all individuals. An individual is alone against an organized minority, right? That often has its hands upon the levers of power. You are not protected. And all of modern society, all of this anti-white bullshit is primarily to deny Europeans the ability to gather for their common interests and to express any kind of in-group preference and thus push back as an interest group against these other interest groups, right? Now,
and I'd like to point out real quick, on the anti-white front, it's also the same as the anti-male front. We will be covering the building blocks of this era from the early 1900s. Bolshevists and other anti-Western, anti-white, anti-male authors, they wrote specifically about what they were going to do to us and how. And they said, we are going to turn people against each other ethnically, against each other by sex, against each other by race and religion and all this other stuff to turn Western civilization on its head. And that's exactly what we're going to demonstrate, hopefully academically and as well as being fun in some of the earlier episodes.
Sorry, I'm muted. Right. So, 100 men acting uniformly in consort with a common understanding will triumph over 1,000 men who are not in accord and therefore be dealt with one by one. Look at what's happening with January 6th. Classic example, right? Meanwhile, it will be easier for the former to act in consort and have a mutual understanding simply because they are 100 and not 1,000, right? So a small, tightly knit group, right, has logistical advantages, right? They're not 1,000, they're just a tightly selected 100. And the selection process and things like bloodlines and stuff play into this. It follows that the larger the political community, the smaller will be the proportion of the governing minority to the governed majority, and the more difficult it will be for the majority to organize to resist for reaction to resist the majority. This is Italian elite theory. This is Gaetano Mosca's the ruling class, published originally as Elementi di Scienza Politica in 1895. So I mean, this is not new, right? Now, when I covered this at university, right, what they basically said is, oh, well, you know, Mosca, he supported the fascists in Italy, so therefore, right, like we can't listen to anything he said, despite the fact that he's absolutely right. But going to like a lefty university when they're fucking teaching you communism and all this kind of other shit, the last thing they want to like teach all these fucking like BLM, Extinction Rebellion fucktards who think they're like the smartest people on earth, right, is that it is not their mass action that changes anything, right? It is the organized elites that pull the strings, that does the messaging, that tells them where to jump and they just say like, oh, Black Lives Matter, fucking Slava Ukraine, wear a fucking mask. I mean, it's become so obvious recently with, you know, psyop after psyop after psyop.
Especially with the COVID bullshit. My God.
Mate, it's just, and they just tell you to jump. You say how high. Oh yeah, sorry about the screen thing. I know it's cutting off some of the text. We'll figure it out. This is why we're trying to like work out the kinks, and we appreciate the feedback, right?
And remember, for everybody listening, this is a alpha stream. When we actually start the first official episode, we're going to have a lot more things smoothed out. We're going to have multiple layouts already organized on the back end. This was mostly just to let our friends and followers know that we are starting a new stream series, and the first official episode will be very soon. #soon. But you know, this is going to be a little rough because this is mostly just us talking to you guys about the why of our new stream series. So it'll look better once we actually hit the road.
Indeed. Right. So Moscow continues. He's basically saying that organized minorities always rule, right? The elitist thesis does not merely assert that in a society, the minority makes the decisions and the majority obeys. This is an obvious truism with no power to explain political relationships. And again, you talk to fucking retards. They seriously don't see this. It's frustrating. The fewer people that issue laws, orders, and instructions, that fewer people issue laws, orders, and instructions than receive and obey them is a fact scarcely worth commenting upon. The elitist argument is a much stronger one. It is that the dominant minority cannot be controlled by the majority wherever democratic mechanisms are used. So we're fucked, right? Like democracy is not only not going to fulfill the function for which most people think that it serves, which is to allow the will of the people to come forth. It absolutely cannot. Moscow continues. What happens in other forms of government, namely that an organized minority imposes its will on the disorganized majority, happens also and to perfection, whatever the appearances to the contrary under the representative system. When we say that the voters choose their representative, we are using a language that is very inexact. The truth is that the representative has himself elected by the voters, and if that phrase should seem too inflexible and too harsh, we might qualify it by saying that his friends have him elected. In elections, as in all manifestations of social life, those who have the will, and especially the moral, intellectual, and material means to force their will upon others, take the lead over others and command them. Now, lest you, you're one of those people and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe like this is like actually true. I want to point this out here, right? This has actually been studied. This is a bombshell paper that I also, of course, did not hear about in university because it's very, very counter narrative. So these data scientists, they went through and they studied all of these decisions of the United States Senate versus how popular these decisions were, right? And what they discovered is that what the people actually want has a statistically insignificant result on whether it actually happens or not. Let's see if you can see this.
Like during the civil rights and feminist movements of the early 1900s, the vast majority of people protested it, didn't want it, male and female, black and white, etc. They fought against it, and they were told tough titty over the barrel of a tank.
Yes. So if you can see this graph here, average citizens' preferences, right? This is how many of the voting electorate actually supported the decision, and it had no effect at all, right? However, if we move on to the preferences of the economic elites, right, you get a very different graph. The more of the elites that support a thing, the more likely it is to happen. If they don't want it to happen, it never happens. If they do want it to happen, it always fucking happens, right? Same with interest groups. So we do not live in a democracy as currently sort of like described. Look at immigration in the UK. This is the most classic illustration of this issue. Okay, for 15, maybe even 20 years, right? People in the UK have been saying they want less immigration, right? They want less immigration. They want less immigration, right? No one gave a fuck. The government didn't care, right? They just, you want immigration, less immigration. You be racist. You be racist. How dare you not want more doctors,
Sure.
engineers? You know.
Yeah,
Sorry, go on.
and also from the non-culture warrior side of things, you've got the capitalists, the investor class, the line must go up GDP cucks saying, "Oh no, we have to have immigration because money and business and wages down and blah blah blah." But it's really the same thing. It's the same annihilative force, whether it's the capitalist pig side of the coin or the communist panda side of the coin.
Yeah, we got the communist panda coming up later. So yeah, if you and now that all of a sudden the Israel Palestine war has broken out, you suddenly have people like Douglas Murray coming out and saying, "Oh, deport them all." Gee, that was quick. Gee, that turned on a fucking dime. Why is it that literally, right, like 3 months ago, right, if you said that, you'd be, "Oh, you racist. Oh, you so racist. I can't believe it." And now, because of the actions of an organized minority. Now, I mean, to be fair, in the UK, for example, we have two organized minorities. We have the Zionists and the Islamists both fighting each other, and both of them have tremendous influence over, you know, the media and all kinds of other levers of power, and they're going at it. And you know, the disorganized mass is basically caught in the middle, right? But the elites will use the disorganized mass to their advantage. We're seeing this very, very clearly with what's going on this Saturday. There's going to be a march on the cenotaph. You know, you got to protect England, and don't get me wrong, I'm all about protecting England. I'm just pretty sure that a lot of these people that are being co-opted into this, they're just being used, right? Neither interest group has any real interest in protecting England. They're just trying to protect their own interests. Let me see what else. I got some more here. Let's see. Okay, so basically Moscow goes on. He asks, why is it that the majority assent to the rule of the minority? And basically, Moscow says it's because they subscribe to the political formula of the ruling class, which in our society would be democracy, it would be liberalism, it would be, you know, the rights of the individual and all that kind of stuff, despite the fact that the rights of the individual are breached all the time. Especially, you know, in the UK and in the US, the rights that accrue to you as an individual very, very much depend on your political standpoint. That's not supposed to be how it worked, but in function, it does. The two chief examples that Moscow provides are political formulas that are based on supernatural beliefs, for example, the divine right of kings, and those based on the notion of popular sovereignty or will of the people. And it's not that these myths need to be cynical, like I was saying earlier. I mean, they can be, right? But they are necessary for the operation of society. Everyone has to sort of believe in it in order to get along. And once either the masses or the elites stop believing in the noble lie, right, things start getting tricky.
And
so
let me interject here from my side of things. I talk about biospirit a lot, and when you have mass migration and foreigner and hostile religious or ethnic groups as the active dominant minority blocks, you get biospiritual dissonance, because the host population and the ones that arose organically or somewhat organically from that host population to be the ones in control, when that is broken, you have biospiritual dissonance, because multiculturalism is a lie. We know it's multiracialism. And that's why you have this dissonance, and that's why this illusion, this back and forth between ruler and ruled breaks apart, because they are no longer operating towards the same biospiritual health together.
Yep, exactly. So Moscow basically says that as soon as there is a shift in the balance of political forces, then the manner in which the ruling class is constituted changes also. If a new source of wealth develops in a society, if a practical importance of knowledge grows, if an old religion declines or a new one is born, woke, for example, if a new current of ideas spreads, then simultaneously far-reaching dislocations occur in the ruling class, and you get this dislocation between the ruling class and the masses. So let's see. And then Mosca goes on to basically talk about the bureaucratic state, which is something like Pareto talks about. So there's sort of the rulers, they're the people who decide, and then there is sort of the managerial elite, is what Burnham would call it, the people who actually implement the decisions, the functionaries, the deep state, essentially, right?
And a word that I like to use is oligarch.
Well, that's not, the oligarchy is more the actual deciders, right? The deep
I thought that's
state,
who you were talking about. Is it not?
No. I'm talking about the functionaries, right? So
the function. Oh, sorry, I missed that. Forgive me.
So Biden makes the decisions. The State Department and all the little goblins, they the FBI, they institute those decisions, right? And
Gotcha.
without that managerial elite, he can make all the decisions that he wants, but no one's going to like follow them through. So they're sort of intrinsically interrelated. That's how it basically works. And then we've got more Pareto, but maybe we'll save that for next week. So there we go. That's Genitio Mosca and the birth of Italian elite theory. I hope you enjoyed that.
That we just covered is one of the examples of the angle that this stream series is going to take, is talking about specific authors, specific pieces, doing about an hour presentation on them. And of course, we're going to have a little bit of humor sprinkled in there. Speaking of humor, can we do the panda?
Yes. So we got a very, very special guest tonight, Patty the Propaganda Panda, all the way from communist China. He's got some words of wisdom for you all. Let's see if I can get this to work. Right. Hi, kids. It's Patty the Propaganda Panda. I'd like you to know that a lot of people are beginning to question the legitimacy of the current system, and that makes me a sad panda. Yes, you're not the kind of person who would question the legitimacy of democracy, are you? Because that would make me very, very sad.
That's good stuff. I love it.
I was kind of hoping you'd reply there. Actually, it's meant to be a back and forth.
I didn't know we were doing a bit yet. I didn't know we were doing a bit yet. Why no, Mr. Panda? I don't believe in democracy. Now, why would that make you a sad panda? Is that because not believing in democracy means that communism is a lie?
Well, you see, people who don't believe in democracy are Nazis. And we can't have Nazis running around fucking up our society. In fact, we really need to round up all of these Nazis and put them into goddamn camps. And only then can we have a democracy.
But Mr. Panda, wouldn't that violate their human rights? Because you said that freedom of speech and freedom of expression is an important part of democracy.
Well, what you need to understand is that people who don't believe in democracy aren't really human. And calling them not human makes me a very happy panda. Because one day we can take all of those people who aren't human and round them up and stick them into goddamn camps. Allegedly, but nicely.
That's good stuff. So this is the kind of back and forth that we're trying to build, that we're going to build in the stream. So it's going to have some humor. We're going to have some fun things to look at. And speaking of fun things to look at, I'm going to pop open and show you some of the elements that Lomax has made and that I have made. Let's see. We'll start with the only one that I have made, which is this one.
I hope you guys enjoyed that. That was very sort of like off the cuff bit. And also, thank you very much to Lomax Designs, who did these incredible panda images. Like honestly, they're so amazing. I think my favorite is the no Nazi.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, that was really good.
Lomax. I really appreciate it, man. Like,
I love how the swastika's backwards. It's perfect. It's perfect.
Yeah, I know, right? the teddy bear. He's like, I just want to genocide people. I'm a good guy. Look at my teddy bear, right? Like, come on, come
on. All right. So, let me share this real quick. All right. Here we have. This is just one of the conceptual ideas that I threw together as a thumbnail or a backdrop for maybe a first chapter or first episode or something. Now we're going to move to the things that Lomax has made. Lomax does great work. He's the one that made the beautiful intro for my Discordant Dragons stream. He's made a lot of the graphics, the avatars for the people that visit my channel. He does amazing work. And a big thank you to Lomax Designs for all this. He did this amazing artwork of the technocrat manipulators. Let's see here. He did this one. It's always based to remove Schwab, and he removed Schwab from this for us. It's very good. And then let's see, what else do we have here? And then, of course, he made us this awesome decal for our stream logo. So there will be more to come from that. Let's go back to our view here. There we go. He does work for me in Lomax. He does great work. You can check him out at Lomax Designs. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and show for him. Let me go ahead and put his link in the chat for everybody.
Definitely show for Lomax. Like, definitely.
Yeah, here we go. He does excellent professional quality work. You can find him at Lomax Designs. I'm going to throw his link into the chat there. Yeah. There we go. So those are just some of the elements that we've got together right now. I'm going to be working on some. Lomax is making more. We've got great ideas for this stream series as it unfolds. And next week, in the same time slot, we will be back. And I'm going to be discussing I don't know if we're going to call them pillars or not yet, but some of the primary aspects of forming a propaganda machine. Not just what propaganda is, but how it's been used in the last century. What the primary pillars or facets or building blocks of an all-encompassing propaganda society are. So that's something that we'll be going over next week. So we're at the hour mark now. Chris, what else would you like to talk about in our alpha stream here? Anything else come to mind, or other things you want to bring up and talk about what people can expect from this series going forward?
Yeah, so I want to do an episode on woke advertising. So basically, the principles of advertising as existed in the 1980s, I think most people will be familiar with. You know, hot girls, hot cars, lifestyle, aspirational advertising. And then when woke came along, everything seemed to change, and a lot of people, they don't understand why. Well, what kind of happened is that these principles have been very, very well understood, and they are elucidated very clearly by a guy called Vance Packard, who wrote a great book called The Hidden Persuaders, where he broke down 7 basic principles for advertising. I can't remember them off the top of my head.
I had to learn those in sales school because I started off in sales.
Yeah, things like, you belong, you're like this, you're like that. And under woke advertising, basically, all of these have been sort of reversed when sort of targeted at the European majority. I would argue that they are still in effect when appealing to minorities. You belong to a minority, you're a special minority, you have aspirations as a minority. But to the majority population,
earlier, these people invert everything.
Well, not for everyone. Again, it's not a level playing field. The whole structure is designed to psychologically privilege certain groups over other groups. Again, going back to repressive tolerance, or we got to kill all the white supremacists. White supremacy is a very, very inclusive group. It seems it's very, very easy to join. All you really got to do is, I don't know, sit on the couch and have pale skin, I guess, these days. Very, very low barrier for entry. You might say, actually, that it's incredibly inclusive. So yeah, I want to do a stream on that, and we're going to do one on basically like the principles of propaganda. But the problem is, the principles of propaganda is actually quite hard to pin down. So you can find, for example, the principles of war propaganda. So, for example, Goebbels elucidated this quite well, right? He had a whole thing on the principles of war propaganda. But what we're really sort of dealing with is the principles of psychological warfare, and that is much more complicated. I'm going to see if I can distill it down into like a more sort of like simple.
That's why I recommended we start with the beginning of all of this back in the early 1900s war machine propaganda. That's a good place to start, I thought.
Yeah. And I got a bunch of like cool propaganda posters as well we can use to sort of illustrate certain things and stuff. But yeah, that's basically it.
And those will create good touchstones for us to harken back to when we show how that type of propaganda has evolved to be totalitarian, not just focused for war machine.
Well, I mean, all propaganda, in a sense, is a form of menticide. You know what menticide is? You ever heard of that term?
No, I don't think I know that term.
Menticide is to kill the mind, basically. Right?
Oh, okay.
And
I get it.
so it's basically what governments are doing to certain populations in the West at the moment. To menticide, impairs your ability to think, impairs your ability to use logic. It destroys education, it destroys language, it destroys critical thinking. It renders you weak, it renders you powerless, it renders you unable to cohere into any kind of group, to form any kind of like strategy. War propaganda has a fundamentally different function, because war propaganda is meant actually to cohere people together as a nation, right? And then demonize the enemy, right? So woke propaganda is kind of different. And if you see what's happening in the US Army at the moment, all of a sudden they need white men to go and die for Israel, right? All of a sudden they're like, oh, they suddenly remember that white men exist. Funnily enough, like, just, completely coincidentally, there's no, don't be a conspiracy theory and read too much into it or anything like that. And you see this very, very clearly with the demonization of the enemy via the boomer truth regime, which is basically what everyone in the West has lived under since the end of Second World War, which is that Hitler was the most evil man that ever existed. He was evil, but we defeated evil. So evil is not in your heart personally, right? Evil is embodied in the person of a person, and we went and we fucking killed him, and then we banished evil. And of course, a corollary to that is that the Jews were the sacrificial lamb, the
Right.
pure lamb. It's like it's a very, very weird perversion of Christianity, which is probably how they managed to sell it to Western civilizations, right?
And I think that's why you have that kernel of connection sort of baked into the Christian and Jewish connection of the Zionist push post 1945.
Well, we can do an episode on that. I actually know quite a bit about Christian Zionism. It's fascinating. It's basically what happens when you get Judaism subverting Christianity, and that's again, just, it's very, very clear. That's basically what happened through the Schofield Bible and the annotations and just all these weird Jewish ideas that crept fundamentally into Christianity. So like the idea of the rapture, for example, that's a Jewish idea. There's nothing in the Bible that talks about the rapture. You know what I mean? And the idea that, for example, the nation of Israel has to be reconstituted in order for the Messiah to come again. That's not a Christian idea either, right? But it serves certain political purposes. You also talk about, prophecy and how prophecy serves certain political purposes, because there's one of the things I've noticed about prophecy generally is that it always serves a political goal, right? Particularly in religious societies, they come out and they're like, oh, we have to do this because this person's the Antichrist. Of course, before Hitler, right, you describe people as the Antichrist. You see this in the Christian wars all the time, right? Oh, this Pope, he's the anti-Pope. He's the man of blood. He's the dragon with the 7 heads and the whore of Babylon. And woo, you know what I mean, right? But after World War II, they didn't do that anymore. They didn't describe, they didn't describe Putin as the Antichrist. They described him as Hitler, right? Which really sort of highlights how deeply the boomer truth regime has supplanted normative religion in the West.
All right. Well, as you can see, we are over an hour now. And if you would like to financially support, get your paid chats in now. I'm going to go ahead and read the only one that I see thus far. I'm going to refresh Entropy here, and I'm going to refresh all the other places to make sure we don't miss out on any supporters here. And we're going to see what you guys have to say. Starting with my buddy White Student Transmission over on Cash App for $5. Thank you so much, White Student Transmission. He says, I felt that intro in my soul. Well, I'm glad you did. Newsfist put a lot of work into that, and it's very good. So
thanks. I'm glad you liked it. It came to me in a moment. The audio part came to me in a moment of inspiration. I was like drunk one night walking across the waterfront in Malta, and it just popped into my brain. And I was like, I have to get this down before I forget it, because I do that a lot. I like think of stuff, and if I don't write it down, it it flies away to be replaced with some other retarded autist stuff.
All right. So that is the only financial thingy that I'm seeing on any of the platforms. So that brings us tentatively to the end of the stream. And next week, we'll be back in the same time slot, and we will have worked on our format a little more. And we will have more for you guys on this stream series. We might even call it episode 0 if we're confident enough to go forward. So Chris and I will be working behind the scenes, getting stuff done. We have multiple layouts ready to roll. So for those of you that came in a little bit late, we'll do a recap next week. And hopefully this will be a really fun, educational, and inspirational stream series to remember that, we're not alone, and intelligence matters, and the actions that you take matter, but you have to know who you are and where you stand. We are not going to be able to pick up arms and change the government. We're not going to be able to, there's no amount of people we can shoot and no amount of terrorism that's going to fix this. This is an existential thing that we're going to have to work on together a long period of time. And we're going to have to use the right language. We're going to have to use the right tactics. And we're going to have to understand where in this ocean things are. And I really think that's going to matter, because dissidents we have seen can easily be led astray. Look at the Patriot Day, January 6th. Look at what happened with the Million MAGA March and all these other things where patriots, people that really care and genuinely give a crap, want to make a difference, but they're Pied Pipered away by both the left and the right, and by corporations to make foolish decisions that waste their energy. And I don't want anybody that cares to waste their energy, or worse, get themselves killed or imprisoned. So hopefully this will be a very good series that I don't want it to be blackpilling, but we are going to be talking about some really dark, heavy things. But remember, it's going to be in the vein of, we're not going to give up. We're not going to let that flame in us go out. And this is going to be inspirational and educational material that you can hopefully share with others. So I guess that's where I'll leave it off this time for our little alpha stream episode. Anything you want to say before we head out of here, Chris?
Lomax says I need to work on my panda impressions. Yeah. Yeah, thanks. I'll try and get like a better funny voice for it. It's always like a little bit tricky. I was basically
and I'm if I can get the artwork together for it, I'm going to practice on a capitalist pig instead of the communist panda to have sort of a good back and forth. Because, like I've been saying for many years, capitalism and communism are just each a side of the same anti-white shekel. They are used against us in very similar ways. They just stroke the mind and the ego of different types of people, usually the youth versus the elderly. So we'll get into that. So anyway, thank you all for supporting. And I see a lot of positive comments already. I see a lot of our friends here. Wow, we're up to almost 80 viewers live.
Oh, damn.
And
that's
wow,
awesome.
That's great.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for coming. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. This is awesome. So I hope that you guys enjoy this, and we're going to have this time slot. It's the same time slot as Discordant Dragons on Monday night, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. That's what we're going to shoot for here. These streams are going to be a little more condensed, though. So between, like I said, 60 and 90 minutes is going to be our target each week. And, of course, at the end, we'll wrap up. We'll check for a viewer engagement, read the super chats, etc. And it should be a great fun time. So you guys have a wonderful weekend. We'll be back Monday night with more Discordant Dragons. Chris, of course, will be with The Happening on his Rumble channel and Odyssey on Mondays and Thursdays. Why don't you tell people why they should follow you, and I'll share your link in the chat.
So I do a news show on Monday and Thursday at 8 p.m. London time, which is 3 p.m. New York for you Ameribros. It's Happening TV. It's a catching up of the latest happenings and funny videos and stuff like that. A bit of eye bleach at the end to counter the clown pill. Come along. It's only on Rumble though, because fuck YouTube. I've been like totally banned off Twitter as well. Like totally shadow banned. I don't even know what I did, man.
I don't know either, but whenever I even try to tag your account, it doesn't even show up. So it's your main account's been really punished on the old Twitter X. So anyway,
I mean, you can follow me if you want to at Malinformed TV, and the other account that I'm probably going to have to like shift to now is Happening TV. So if you're on Twitter and follow that. It's probably because I retweet so much or something like that. I was reading up on it. Apparently, they're saying like, don't repost anything for 3 days and it might reset. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, I guess we'll see. Anyway, thanks for coming along, everyone. Thank you, Yiz. It's been awesome. We'll see you all next week, I guess. Yeah.
Indeedly doodly. And we're going to play out with that beautiful intro again to give you guys another taste. So I'll see you Monday night for more Discordant Dragons and Monday afternoon for me for more happening. Have a great weekend, everybody. God
Have a
bless.
good weekend, guys.
Look into this dark, unforgiving glass eye, the mesh of the microphone. Tell it your deepest thoughts, hopes, fears, and desires. We will take these emotions, turn them, and feed them back to you, for we have goals, goals that your feelings will assist. This is how we rule, from the shadows, playing your emotions like puppet strings. We lead you to destinations that we have prepared, and you willingly oblige, thinking these decisions to be your own. When you do as we wish, we reward you, and when you go against us, we punish you. In a million subtle ways, we influence your supposedly free choice. By this method, we rule over a population convinced that they are the masters of their own destiny. Welcome to the Empire of Lies.